Today is going to be kind of a response to a video which I've just watched by Jeff at Calicosilver. It was a great video, and in fact it was a response to one of my videos. He was doing favourite opening tracks to Bob Dylan albums, and he picked at least a couple which had fade-in intros. And Jeff talked wonderfully about the fade-in intro, what it is, how it works, why it's so effective. I won't repeat what he said, I'll just leave a link to his video down below. So hopefully you know what I mean by this. This is a song which, rather than just starting, fades in, so you gradually hear it. It's almost as if the music has been playing already in some other virtual space and you have now become party to it. I've always loved songs that start like this, and I would go so far as to say that the songs that I really love, part of the reason why I love them is because they have this fade-in intro. So I'm going to go through my 10 of my favourites. I've not picked any that Jeff chose, so there's at least a couple of Bob Dylan ones which are really great examples, but Jeff has done those, so I won't do those, but I'm gonna run through 10. Now, you might want to play along with this, in which case you may need a couple of minutes to think through for yourself. Can you think of any great songs that have fade-in intros? So for the benefit of those people who do want to play along, I will now give you a short tea break in which to think of those songs. My first one is a record that I do show a lot, and I've talked about a lot, so I won't talk about it too much, but it is Revolver by the Beatles, and this is probably the first ever fade-in song I ever heard. It's on side 2, and it is by George Harrison, and of course it's the song I Want to Tell You, which is track 5. This works particularly well, I think, because the previous song, Dr. Robert, has this fantastic fake outro, fake fade out, where the song does fade out. You think it's going to fade out and disappear, and then all of a sudden it just comes back at full volume and finishes. It's quite a funny touch. Then you get the couple of moments of silence, and then George's song gradually fades in with this great riff, the and it just sounds so cool. I always used to think it sounds like it's flying in from somewhere, from another planet, and it's gradually getting closer and you're gradually hearing it louder and louder. Always loved that one. And there is another famous Beatles fade in, which I'll leave you to work out what that one is, but it was from a single from a year or so before this album. So anyway, that's my first one, I Want to Tell You. I should just say I'm not including any crossfades, so there are quite a few good fade-ins which happen with a crossfade going on. So one track fades down and another one fades up underneath. There are quite a few good examples of that, but I'm not going to include any of those. So no apologies then, another record that I show all the time. So I promise after this one we'll get onto some stuff which I haven't shown all that much. So this is 10cc, the original soundtrack, and a song which does divide opinion. Some people really don't like this song. And in fact I had a comment recently from somebody who'd watched a video of mine where I was talking about 10cc, and they said, yeah, but the execrable Life is a Minestrone, which is the song that I want to talk about on side 2. One of their wackier moments, and yeah, it fades in. Simple as that. It's got a great bouncy fade in, instrumental fade in, and then it goes into the first verse. So there we go. Life is a Minestrone, served up with Parmesan cheese by 10cc. Another one which goes back into my earliest musical memories, really, and this is a great one. This is a classic. This is ELO, Electric Light Orchestra, and the opening song from their magnum opus Out of the Blue, and of course it's Turned to Stone. And this was a break. This was a slight departure, really. The previous few ELO albums had started with some kind of big exciting conceptual opening. So you had Fire on High, which was on Face the Music, which came in with all these spooky choirs and strange noises, and then you had the incredible opening to Tightrope from the New World Record. Turn to Stone, which opened Out of the Blue, is a very straightforward shuffly kind of status quo like track with some squelchy Moog synths, and it's very straightforward. It's a great song. It just comes in with a fade at the start, fades in at the start, and always sounds great. Turn it up. Okay, we'll show a CD next. This one is record I used to have on vinyl and don't anymore, so I'll show the CD. This is one of my favourite songs by this band, if not my favourite track by them of all time. So this is Led Zeppelin and Houses of the Holy. And the song I want to feature is on side 2, and it is John Paul Jones's track No Quarter, which is a very spooky, atmospheric song. Fades in very slowly to the sound of John Paul Jones's, I'm going to say, is it a Moog? Some kind of organ, maybe a Mellotron or a Moog, playing this very quiet, sad, melancholy, slightly spooky keyboard piece, overture. Fades up very, very slowly and then turns into one of Zepp's most atmospheric and haunting songs and soundscapes. I think John Paul Jones does some great work on that, and the fade in definitely elevates the song and helps make it what it is. So Led Zepp, No Quarter, from Houses of the Holy. Right, this next one is a great favourite of mine, by a band that I got into quite late. I was probably in my 20s by the time I finally heard them, and this is my favourite album by them, I think, and this is certainly my favourite track from the album. So it's Talking Heads and Fear of Music, which I think came from 1979. This is the second album produced by Brian Eno, and the track, of course, from side 1 is Cities, which has a wonderful, propulsive, dancey disco vibe, really, with all these scratchy guitars, and has one of David Byrne's most classic performances, I think. Very neurotic, very jittery. Find myself a city to live in, and it just fades in. It gradually swims into focus at the start. The band is already playing at full throttle, and somebody just inches the fader up, and the song gradually hones into view. And yeah, fantastic song, fantastic groove, and the fade in is really effective on that one. So Cities, Talking Heads. I should just mention, I think that one fades out as well. I particularly love songs which fade in and fade out, because you then you get this sense that there is this continuum of music going on, and you have just become party to it temporarily. You've kind of eavesdropped into this this process, or this music, this eternal music which is happening. You get to hear it, and then you then get to not hear it anymore, but you get this sense that it's carrying on. That is the case with this one. This is the Smiths from the Hatful of Hollow compilation. This is an original factory record, which I picked up from a charity shop many years ago. And the song in question is on side 2, and of course it is Hand in Glove, which begins and ends really in the exact same way. The band are all playing full throttle, and you hear Johnny Marr's harmonica, and again it's a very haunting sound, quite kind of churning, and there's a lot going on. Very textured kind of soundscape. Gradually fades in, does its thing for a couple of minutes, and then fades out again. So good example there, Smiths, and from the Hatful of Hollow compilation, Hand in Glove. Now this next one, there were a couple of tracks I could have chosen, and I went for this one in the end. There is another one, maybe even more than one, but there is another classic one. But I'm going to show, for David Bowie, I'm going to show this record here, which of course is the Space Oddity album. This is a reissue, and great artwork there. And it's the first song on the record, and Space Oddity has an incredibly atmospheric opening. I mean, it's clearly a song about space travel. It's got that kind of interstellar theme to it, and it's about an astronaut lost in space. And when it fades in very slowly to the sound of a very lonely sounding melancholy guitar, and it really helps to capture that sense of deep space, maybe looking at an object in deep space and you're gradually moving towards it. It's very, very slowly hovering into view, as does the song, and just a wonderful opening to the record. First track on the album, of course, so it's always good to have a fade-in track first. So there we go, David Bowie and Space Oddity. And this one, I could not leave this one out. I streamed this record the other day when I was going out for a walk with the dog, and it's got such a wonderful sound. Bob Marley and Exodus, and the first track on this record is Natural Mystic, which I'm sure you don't need me to tell you is one of the greatest Caribbean grooves of all time. Very slow, steady, pulsing kind of sound, and it just works so well, gradually fading in. Not sure if it fades out as well, this one. I'd have to go back and listen to it, but you definitely get the sense with this one, this kind of eternal music of the stars, which is just playing, perhaps not of the stars, this eternal music of the Caribbean islands, and you're just gradually moving towards it, and you can see it coming towards you like smoke in the distance. So there we go, great album, Natural Mystic, from Bob Marley and the Wailers, from Exodus. Right, so I've saved my final two, my favourite two, until last. I'll do this one first. I'll end with what I think is the greatest fade-in rock music history. This one I'm particularly fond of, though. This is, I've only got it on CD, unfortunately. This is Brian Eno and his album Another Green World, which I think came from 1975, maybe. And it's the title track, which is track 7 on the album, the track Another Green World, which is a very short little fragment, 2 minutes long maybe, and essentially it's just like a little loop. It doesn't go anywhere, it's just doing the same thing over and over. It's a kind of very restful sounding, pulsing groove. There's a keyboard, like a sort of organ sound, and this repeating guitar figure. There's a very, very slow fade in, and the song then doesn't really go anywhere, and then it just fades out again. And I think with Brian Eno there was a conscious decision there to try and create music that sounded like a process, just this ongoing organic process which is happening. It's almost as if you're looking through a microscope. There's something going on this microscope slide, and you're just looking down at it for a couple of minutes, and then you move your eye away, and this process, whatever it is, carries on, without you looking at it. And it's a great track. Always loved it. It was the theme tune to the Arena TV show, which was an arts program in the UK back in the day, and it was a brilliantly evocative theme tune for that show, with a great title sequence, which I always loved, of a floating bottle floating on the ocean with a neon sign. Very restful. Truly iconic. Brian Eno and Another Green World. So we'll finish with, I think, the greatest fade-in rock history. I think it's so well judged, so perfectly executed, and there's so much going on in the music that you really, I find, when I listen to it, my ears are really working hard to hear everything, every last little texture. And I'm sure that was, I'm sure that was deliberate. But it's Pink Floyd, of course, and the track "Shine On You Crazy Diamond," parts 1 to 5, is it? I'm not sure, from the opening side of the record, the first song, and it comes in really gradually to the sound of Rick Wright's spectral keyboards, and you hear all sorts of strange tinkling noises in the background, this gradual throbbing kind of hum, really. It always takes me back to my first ever gig, which was at Manchester Main Road in 1987, when I saw Floyd on the Momentary Lapse of Reason tour, and that was the track which they opened with, and the stage was in darkness, and gradually you heard Rick Wright's keyboard just gradually fading in, and then a spotlight picked him out at the keyboard, and the whole audience just rose up. But it's such a slow atmospheric opening, it really does not it's not in any rush to get started, and even once it's finally there and this wonderful keyboard texture is finally with you, it then hovers around for quite a long time before anything happens. And I just think it's so atmospheric, so beautifully done, so elegant and architectured. Obviously you had the guys in the band who were architects. I think they were thinking structurally there, and again, just that sense of this eternal music which is going on, and you're gradually becoming a witness to it. So yeah, I think that is my favourite example of a fade-in. So I'm sure there's going to be other examples. I'll be delighted to know if anybody can think of any others, and I hope you enjoyed the video. So check out Jeff's video as well, because he has some interesting insights about fade-ins, in particular as they refer to Bob Dylan. So that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed that, and I'll be back soon. Take care. Bye bye.